I think the big issue is that we have continued to see this happen with several Microsoft games, and even though it's probably not the same situation, but it kind of gives us it raised the alarm on us, like, wait a minute, what? I hope this is not what I think it is, and people are just focusing, like Silent said, on the split screen, but there were other features, that also was cut. Like on this update, there was 3 features cut, but previously, I think it was like in July, there was also 2 other features that were cut. Now, I'm not like Silent say. I'm not the biggest car racing gamer or whatever. But at the end of the day, those are features that were supposed to release on release date, and they're not gonna be there. And if they're not there, it's for a reason. And for better or for worse, unfortunately, players will have to wait for these features. They will come, but the thing is, do they really need to release the game at the time? Because like, I feel like there's so many games coming out, especially that October. If you look at October, it's super busy. Why not give it an extra few months and maybe get some of these some of these other features in there? And then there's the other thing that Silent also mentioned that I also agree with them. This is what they're telling us, but we don't know what they're not telling us. Mm-hmm. So hopefully it's just this, but what happens if there's more issues? And then they release a game like many other, this is not only happening with Microsoft, it's happening everywhere in the industry where they're releasing games that unfortunately they have issues. Mm-hmm. Some of them are not groundbreaking, but at the end of the day, I would rather wait an extra few months and have a game that's more polished.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where it feels like if there's some smoke, there's usually a fire that someone is frantically trying to put out right before release, right? For me, at least, when I watched that apology tour video that Chris Sasaki did, that man, God bless him. Like, I'm sure they've been through the ringer as far as trying to get this thing up and rolling. Obviously, they're behind the deadline they wanted to have in the beginning. But that man looked like a man that was beaten down, like mentally and emotionally, and looked exhausted. Like, I worry about like the human aspect in the background of this situation, of like how much are they having to try and jam pack the last little bit before they release this game, and is it really necessary? And that goes to what you're saying, is like October is packed. That's not it's not necessary. But Plume, what do you think? Like, if it needs extra time, if there's a reason to do that, do you think they should delay
it? Can I say one more thing before Plume goes?
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, the other thing that I wanted to say is, I feel like Microsoft, they continue to shoot themselves in the foot. Because, for example, there's one of these features, I think is racing with AI in feature multiplayer.
Yep.
Isn't that like a new feature? Was that on the previous one?
See, and that's where I wish, I think is Dion is usually the one that's in the chat, the one that just found us recently. He was the one that was being basically like my multiplayer Sherpa this weekend. And he probably has that answer. I'm not familiar with that suite.
Okay, well, maybe I'm wrong, but here's my point. If this is a new feature, why announce it in the first place if you don't know you have it ready? Why not wait? And a lot of these other features, even if there are older features, but a lot of these features, a lot of people don't really talk about them. So why not stay quiet? Once you have it ready, then you announce it closer to the release. But
have it more as like a under promise over deliver. Like, when it's ready, you announce it, not way ahead of time if you have fear that it's not going to happen.
Exactly.
Plume, sorry, going back to you.
Yeah, sorry, Plume.
Yeah, I'm like, for me, everything that's missing from Forza Motorsport that they've announced, to me, I personally really don't care. Like I may not be the best person to weigh in on it because I'm not like the biggest, like I'm kind of like you said, I'm not the biggest Forza Motorsport fan in the world. I am excited to play this game, but from everything that I've seen that they've announced that isn't there at launch, based off of feedback just from going through social media, I feel like most people have the consensus that they're minor features that they would rather just jump in day one rather than have this game delayed past October. I think like the core game for Forza is available. It is going to be there. They're going to have a deep career mode. So for me personally, that's really all I'm going to be placing. I'm probably not even going to be playing split screen Forza. I'm probably not going to be playing too much of the drag mode or anything like that. So personally, I couldn't care less, like personally. In terms of should they delay it, I think there's like a lot of things that go into whether they want to delay the game or not. I feel like if there were major technical issues or there was something that this game is going to come out and it's really going to be buggy and broken, I don't think they would put Forza Motorsport through what they did with Redfall. I just don't think that that's something that's going to happen. It's a huge game for them. It's also a game that has a pedigree that has come out at a very high quality pretty much every time it's released. I don't think they would throw all that away. So I don't think they should delay it personally. I think October's fine. It is coming out in a jam-packed time of the year. Like if you look at all their game releases of October, will people even be that upset if they did delay? Probably not, but there are definitely people who aren't even going to play Starfield and are just looking forward to Forza Motorsport, right? And those people are going to be the ones that it backfires on. I think what they do is they probably look at the statistics of how many people play these game modes and whether it makes sense for them to delay it based off of those modes. Will that have more of a negative effect on the reception of the game, delaying it for those game modes that probably a smaller percentage of people play? Or should they just push it out without them, knowing that the rest of the game and the core is good and that it will have a strong reception without those game modes? I feel like that's what's going to happen. I could look like an idiot when it does release, and it could be in terrible shape and all these game modes people are complaining about, but I feel like the majority of people playing this game aren't going to be that upset about those features that aren't there at launch. So that's why they're just going ahead with the launch.
That's fair. That's fair. Crazy. What's your take on this? Where are you sitting with it? Do you think this thing needs to be delayed? Do you think these delays that we're seeing on some of these modes, is it a concern to you about maybe where they're actually at on the dev point?
Here's what I could be wrong with this, but let's connect some points right here. Let's give some examples. Like for example, if you make a game, right? We all know that developing a game is a highly complicated thing. I mean, Sourblow has been learning a little bit on the development side of things.
Oh, crazy! That's easy. You press a button and it just makes it.
It just makes it.
You
Exactly.
want to add you want to add 60. You just press a second button and it adds 60.
Exactly. That's also super simple. Now it's really hard. So what I'm imagining is like how you said, Simon, right? This game missing these features, could there be issues with the game just by missing these small features? Could there be problems with the game itself? Could it cause like I don't know, could it cause like more stuff that it could be made like a little bit unplayable, stuff like that? Let's say I don't even know how can I say this, but yeah, like missing these small features or extra features can cause something to the game, because either way they gotta go around it and they gotta fix it, since they can't add those features now. They've been working on it. They gotta take that out. Am I right, Sourblow? You gotta like go around it, fix it in order for it to work. Could it take them like a little bit more time or no?
It depends. It depends on what you're taking out, right? Like, and that's the thing is like if it's in. I would wonder if maybe that would be more of a concern with something as a legacy mode where it was already kind of baked into their formula generally. My question would be, how much did they work on that before they decided they needed to delay it? And how easy is it for them to basically block off that functionality without messing up other parts of the code, right? Like that's what you're saying.
Yes. Thank you. That's what I'm trying to say. Yes. And that could And that
Can I
and that
just ask,
oh,
can I just ask one question about that?
all right.
Did they brand Forza Motorsport? They're branding it as a live service game, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So even if it came out with every single those features in it, there will still be new stuff coming out
Oh, yeah.
later.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so they okay.
So that.
so
Oh, sorry. Go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. No, I was just gonna say, so in terms of the build of it, I mean, they're still gonna have to work around stuff and build stuff into it, and there's probably stuff that we don't even know is coming that is
Yeah.
half complete already that they just turned off for the release of the game.
Yeah. And if they can
don't
go in, if they can basically just like chop off that access and just be like, hey, this you don't have access to, but it's coming soon, and that doesn't
Yeah.
mess up other stuff in the process, like, cool. Like, and like you say, very, very good point, is like more stuff will come as time goes on. So maybe that's more plug and play than maybe I'm giving it credit for. Makes me nervous though, because I just wonder with the legacy modes, if those are as easy to take out, where they're kind of more baked in than maybe some of the extra features they'll add later on.
So
Yeah.
that's why I went into that, because what worries me is that, okay, the game comes out, right, and everything works fine. All of a sudden you're in the middle of this, and all of a sudden the game kicks you out or something happens. Oh, and you see all these stuff, and they gotta hit into there, put patches in there, try to fix everything, all the issues that has happened in launch day, because them taking out these features, or stuff like that, because it can happen. It can happen.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what and that's what worries me. So when Silent and I went out there and said, hey, why don't you guys just take this opportunity, right? Especially now, because this is actually a great opportunity for them to say, hey, let me just move it to January. It's actually a good opportunity for them to do that. I'm not trying to be negative and say, no, they should release it right away. Hey, power it up, but let's release it. No, guys. I want them to come out with a good game. I want them to come out with a game with no issues, that they have to stress out and go in and put patches in, and they have to, fix everything up, so everybody who is actually waiting for this game like nuts jumps into the game, and is happy about it. That's what I want to see from this game. I don't want this game coming out like, oh, somebody, hey, look what happened with Redfall, right? 1 month before Redfall came out, they said, oh, this game is coming on 30 FPS. That's what they said. This game is coming out on 30 FPS. That's it.
And
when
we
the game-
also
and
we
when
also
we
discovered
saw-
that most of the time that they
This-
showed that game, it was on computer. It
Yeah.
was basically misrepresented to show it like it was in a much better state than it was.
Yes, and when the game came out, look how it came out. We're not saying it was terrible, but we saw compared to what came out, we're like, oh,
And
Lord.
the problem was not only the
Yeah.
30 FPS. It was more than that.
It's more than that,
Dude,
and that's
there
what
was a
scares
lot.
me.
Yeah.
And that's what scares me about this Forza game. And I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy or saying anything bad about it, but hey, if it's actually, this is a good opportunity for them to say, hey, let me move it to January, let me just release it in January, nice and easy, no problem. They
Well,
can do that because we have so many games to play. I mean, a lot of us, and I bet you, if you put out a poll out there and say, hey, what are you guys going to be playing, Starfield or are you guys going to be playing Forza? I bet you Starfield's going to be number one. All of us are going to be stuck on
of course,
Starfield.
but there's gonna be people that are gonna play Forza and are excited for them. I think Silent and Plume kind of summed it up. Like, basically, if you take out these features that they already said they're not gonna be there at launch, but the game runs like good performance,
exactly.
fluid, is not broken, then sure, release it. That's fine. Now, if you end up having to either cut more features or there's more issues, then delay the game, give it more time to cook.
Well, that's I think one of the things that drove me nuts about the vitriol online for the last couple days, when I've still been getting like some residual messages is like, in the past we've had this conversation. Like, let's not have short-term memory on this. We've had this conversation. Like, if a game needs the time, let it delay, do its thing. I'm pretty sure I had one or two people that have in the past said, I'd rather they delay it so it's good to go and everything's content complete, come at me when, like, ultimately this is the same situation. All I'm saying is, like, if there is a concern, because again, it's not just the game releasing out, it's also the human aspect. Like I said, Chris Sasaki looked like a man who was very tired. And I would imagine most of the devs in that studio right now, especially leading up to launch, are very tired. And I just want to make sure that like this thing comes out in a good way, but also there's not consequences from it. Like Chris Sasaki looks like a man, and this is just simply from me seeing it, but he looks like a man that I feel like is either going to take a sabbatical afterwards or is going to maybe move away from the company because he looks stressed out. He looks wiped out.
Yep.
And maybe that's just because they're launching or they're going into launch and he's just tired and he'll bounce back from it. But like this exhaustion and this wear down in these dev studios, I can't even imagine, especially with how many delays we've already seen, along with now the game modes. Raichi actually brought up a good point that I wanted to touch base on real quick. So he mentioned in regards to like releasing the game and stuff. He was asking if they would end up getting hit. He said, will Motorsport get a high score for promised future features like what happened to Halo Infinite?